You're listening to the Cash Podcast, creating affluence, success, and happiness with your financial surgeon, Adam Koós, President and Portfolio Manager at Libertas Wealth Management Group at libertaswealth.com.
All right, welcome to the beginning of fall, everyone. The seasons are changing and time's passing, but there are still a lot of people who are unemployed or worried about losing their job. And today, I'm going to be talking to veteran recruiter Robb Christenson, co-founder and partner at Peerless Search Partners, to learn about the do's, don'ts, and some tips on putting yourself ahead of the competition and landing your next career. But before we get started, if this is your first time listening or watching, thanks for joining us. The Cash Podcast is produced weekly, and as stated in the intro, Cash stands for creating affluence, success, and happiness, and that's our mission. My hope is for you to learn a little bit more on every single episode so that you become more successful, wealthier, happier, and more educated than you were before you started listening today. So please come back often, subscribe both on iTunes and YouTube, and please note that all links, visuals, charts, and other educational resources can be found on our website at libertaswealth.com. All right, let's get started. But Robb, you and I have known each other for a long time. I appreciate you taking the time to jump on here today.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me, Ed.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But before I get into the questions, I want to formally introduce Robb here. He and I have known each other for almost a decade at this point, but he has more than 15 years of experience in the business. And he actually started his career with a Fortune 500 company. He was a fast starter, kind of quickly advanced into leadership roles, traveling between Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, and then Columbus, Ohio, which is obviously where we are now. And then in 2013, with a new baby on the way, and that's always fun. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there right now that are in the midst of job changes or looking for a job and going through the whole, new baby thing, or maybe a second child even. But with a new baby on the way, he changed and joined a national firm to serve as partner over their financial talent solutions practices, after which his division actually experienced tremendous growth and they became top performers throughout the nation. And then in 2019, he made a big, huge career move of his own, joining his two trusted partners in Chuck Nauman and Sean Cherner to form Peerless Search Partners to help everybody from CEOs to new graduates focusing on finance, accounting, IT, data analytics, supply chain marketing, sales, and HR sectors and industry groups. So considering the breadth of expertise, I'm excited to pepper you with a bunch of questions and call it career search questions today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. There's obviously a lot going on in the hiring environment right now, some pretty significant changes. So,
I'm going to be in a position where I don't even know what to ask sometimes. So I hope that you do a lot of the talking, and I don't do much question asking here. But I've got some questions for you. But I honestly, all I know is what we see on the surface. All I know is what I see in the news, and obviously I deal with numbers and I stare at stock charts and economic data every day, and I know what's going on with unemployment, and I pay attention to that and the different economic indicators as they pertain to the stock market. But just before I jump into questions, maybe tell me just in general what the last 6 months has looked like for you from someone who helps other people find jobs. How has it looked like? I guess what have been the trends? Do you feel like things are getting better? They're plateauing? I mean, what are you seeing?
Certainly better. I mean, like March, April was obviously a disaster, and the best way I could describe that from a job market was it was just paralyzed. Like there was nothing going on. I mean, what was going on wasn't good, and I don't think companies really knew how to navigate through those seasons, even if they had to hire. Most companies weren't equipped to do something like we're doing today with just the Zoom interviewing, and so you saw companies, as things started to open back up, gradually get back and start to conduct hiring. And now when we do the first couple times we did set up people with virtual interviews, it was like such a I don't really want to use this term considering the year we're in, but novel concept. But now it's I'm not going to say it's old hat, but like people are used to it by now. And so companies found a way to adapt and hire, and we've seen month over month growth. And I know that's not unique just to us. Yeah, I'm seeing it across the market as I talk to both my contemporaries in the industry, hiring managers. Hiring is definitely back. Now, I'm not going to equate it to 2019, 18. Those were great times, but it's not as bad as you would think it is right now.
What percentage, if we call 2018, 19 100%, what percentage are we back to?
It'd be hard for me to pin a number on that, but let's say 75, 80%.
Okay, it's better than I thought it would be. Okay.
Yeah, I think what you're experiencing out there too is almost a tale of two different job markets. There's for what I do, primarily finance and accounting, you see a lot of people at senior levels. If they've been laid off, those jobs are hard to come by, and they're not coming back in mass. But when you start getting into, at least in finance and accounting and IT, like more tactical level or just, mid-level jobs, those are coming back. And we still see some companies that are struggling to hire. Actually, quite a few of them that are struggling to hire in that sector.
What would you say you're seeing out there in the job market in terms of the number of available jobs versus the number of those searching? Would you say that there's a bottleneck, or what might that ratio look like?
In terms of for every job?
Yeah.
Again, hard for me to pin a number on it because it's going to be dependent on the level of job that they're hiring. Again, at that senior level, if you're looking at a C-suite type of job and just go to like LinkedIn, you're going to see hundreds of applicants.
Okay. You
talk about something that's for somebody that's maybe 3 years into their career and progressing, that's going to be a highly competitive market. And that's I'm going to focus it on the areas that I primarily do with finance, accounting, IT. But that's really across the board. And when I talk to people that are in, say, manufacturing sectors like those, they're all struggling to bring people on board. That is universal. Okay. Yeah, they can't find enough help. So again, I know I'm kind of dancing around the number, but it really is dependent on the
make a clear picture of it here. So just to make sure I understand. So if in finance, accounting, IT, these I'll call it white collar sectors. It sounds to me like, am I hearing you right that the D-suite, C-suite, the upper level executives, there's lots of applicants and not a lot of positions? So it's more competitive?
Way more competitive.
Okay.
And what we get out of our clients is when we have those level of searches, it tends to be, we always get a laundry list of requirements, but like it's down to, a particular background. Like right now we have one that is very specific, even within their niche. Like it has to have a particular, I'm not going to get overly detailed on or granular, but they want to have the perfect candidate type of thing. So that's what we experience at that level. When we start getting down into the more junior level positions, that talent is hard to come by. And people are, go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing that's happening too is people are afraid to move.
Change careers?
Change careers. So, and maybe that's warming up a little bit, but, I think when June, July, hit, we had more people turning down jobs than we were having them accept them, like getting to the offer stage and declining because they got cold feet and just were afraid to make a move. And I understand that on some level. Like it's the uncertainty of just the world right now. I understand why people are trying to stay put.
I find that interesting. Maybe it's because, I don't know, I have this quote in my head that's been ingrained in my brain for 15 years. There's this person we worked with who's, he's a pilot and he flies corporate executive CEOs around in a private jets. And I remember him being really, really, I won't say what companies he worked with or who he works with now, but I remember him just loving his job, and he just thought it was the greatest job in the world, and he loved what he did. And then one day he comes in the office and he says, hey, I'm changing companies. I'm going to be moving to a new state, and I'm leaving this company, very, very well-known company. Everybody would know who it was if I said it, here in Columbus, and moved to another company out of state. And you would also know this company as well. And he says, I was just shocked. I'm thinking, why are you moving? And I thought you really liked your job. And he says, well, I do like my job. But he says, one of my mentors early in my career told me that you treat job searching and your career like driving a motorcycle. Now, I know everybody who's listening or watching doesn't drive motorcycles, and I don't either, by the way, but what he went on to elaborate and say was that you treat it like you drive a motorcycle. In other words, you always stay ahead of traffic. You don't sit around and wait for the other people to pass you, because most of the accidents that happen when you're driving a motorcycle happen because of other drivers. But if you stay ahead of traffic, then the probabilities of an accident are much smaller. Now, kind of a strange analogy maybe, but it's always stuck with me. So I guess it kind of surprises me that people would be nervous about changing now, because if I'm an executive, C-suite, D-suite, or really any employee, and I have an opportunity to make, whether it even to a lateral move, I feel like that fresh new place is going to be someplace that's going to be maybe more likely to keep me. We've seen a lot of people here, clients of ours, who have worked with companies for 20 plus years and they've been laid off. So I don't know that anybody's safe. So tell me if I'm wrong here, but don't you think that concept of staying ahead of traffic probably makes a lot of sense? Or maybe I'm wrong.
No, I do think it's sage advice. And Well, I understand that. You might understand that. Convincing somebody who, especially when we talk about those junior level searches, and when I say junior level, I'm talking about people that, again, are probably white collar, but still emerging in their careers. They maybe haven't experienced a layoff yet, or it hasn't happened directly to them. And sometimes you need those scars to understand that your job isn't as certain as you think it is. And yeah, I would agree.
I agree with you. Totally.
What's safe? And I see people talk about these, Fortune 500 companies as if that job's always going to be there. Those are the companies that lay off all the time, like all the time. Doesn't matter. It's not dependent on the economy or what's going on. They'll offshore jobs, they cut, they hire back. That cycle, it's rinse and repeat. But again,
we just emerged from the longest economic expansion in U.S. history, so it makes sense that anybody who's under the age of 40 probably doesn't know what it's like to go through something like this, mathematically speaking.
And if your career is only ascending and only great things are happening, then maybe you're just more comfortable in that job. And again, I understand it. Like, the world's flipped upside down this year, and it certainly adds another layer of complexity to things. So I do understand the fear, the apprehension of the unknown, but I do think it's a little bit misguided too.
Okay.
You really have to weigh these things out in a vacuum and look at them and say, okay, is this still the right career move for me, regardless of what's going on in the world? And vet that out with potential employers too, and talk about, the financial, I guess, security of the company, of that position, talk about your concerns, and really vet that with the potential employer.
That makes sense. Well, let's get into some of the detailed questions here. I mean, what do you feel, or what have you noticed, I guess, to be some of the biggest frustrators that you're finding with those who are looking for a job right now, the job seekers out there?
Yeah, I think number one is just not hearing back. And I will say this, it's an indictment of my entire industry, both third-party recruiters, talent acquisition, corporate recruiters, is that I don't think we're the most responsive lot. And that's shame on us. But, you see it now in mass when there's multiple applicants for jobs, and I'm not saying qualified, but just multiple applicants for jobs. And I don't think TA does a really good job of getting back to people. So it's the old applying and never hearing back.
TA being talent acquisition, of course.
Yeah. Sorry,
okay.
I should probably use that kind of an.
It's all right, no worries.
But thank you. But yeah, I think just not hearing back is the number one frustration at the C-suite level. And it's just the scarcity of jobs out there right now. But that's not entirely new. It's just harder as you climb the ladder to find the right fit. But and this is sort of going away now. The old job postings, that there's things out there, and it still does exist, but job postings that have been out there for months, the company's not actively hiring for. And I get that as a prospective candidate. Like, if the job's not real, pull it down.
Right, for sure. You see a lot of that?
Yes.
Really? What percentage? Not to throwing math at this. But.
Hard for me to say, because I don't know about the details behind every job. But let's just say a quarter of them.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah, and some of that's just with the job boards and the way they're set up, and that there's auto renewals, and these companies just kind of let that go. And I don't know if they're pipeline building, but yeah, it's a problem. And the problem is even bigger because then people don't know. We don't have a real good indicator of how many jobs are actually actively being recruited out there, and candidates start to lose faith that when you apply to these jobs and you can't tell if they're real or not, and you don't hear back, and you start to lose faith in the overall job search.
Well, speaking specifically to the not hearing back, because I actually had a question I was going to ask you later about that specifically. But I mean, what advice would you give to those that are out there that are saying, and I hear it, I'm not even a recruiter, right? I'm not even in your business, but they'll say that, we can't even get an interview, or we can't even get a call back. It's like, if I could get the opportunity, I feel like I have a chance. Or some people might be really confident. They say, I have a good chance if I could just get the interview, but they can't even get a call back. What advice would you have for those people? What would you do knowing what you know?
Yeah, I think you have to teeter on that line at any given point of being persistent versus being pushy.
Talk about that line.
You can't just rely on the job boards. And if I had to say that there's like a problem with job seekers today, it's the old applying and then just let's play the waiting game, hang by the phone, and that's probably not going to work out.
I don't mean to laugh, but I have a note here specifically just in case you didn't say that. So I apologize. Because I remember years ago, we had somebody who, my wife and I, Donna and I, let this person live with us for a while. And I remember I just had some major surgery. This is years and years ago. And so I was at home for 4 weeks and I was going for walks with him. And one day I got to see firsthand what it's like for someone to search for a job from scratch. And this person, had a master's degree, a degree in accounting. And he said, I can't get any bites. I can't seem to get anybody to respond to me. And as we're going on the walk, I remember literally where I was on the walk, even the street I was on and everything. And I said, hey, I was like, well, tell me this. I was like, when you look at all the things you're doing to look for a job, what could you do that is less than what you're doing now? And he got confused and he's like, well, what do you mean? What could I do that's less? Well, okay. So what are you doing right now? He says, well, I'm applying online, send tons of applications out. I said, okay, so what could you do that's less than that? And it was quiet for about, 10 steps. And then he goes, well, nothing, I guess. And I go, exactly. You've got to do more than the minimum, especially in a technological world with the internet and social media, where that's the least you can do. I mean, you can't do less than apply for a job online and then wait, right? So I don't mean to take over the answer to your question here, because that's not even the answer. But what are some of the do's and don'ts to walk that line of making sure you're not being annoying, but being persistent enough to where you put yourself, say, ahead of the competition?
Well, I think you just nailed one of them, like the old apply and then, all right, job's done today. Like, no, you have to treat this like an actual job. A job search is very frustrating. It's filled with emotional highs and lows. And you have to go in with a game plan every day. So let's just say ABC Corporation is hiring. You're interested in them. Okay, what's your game plan to get in there outside of applying? There's step one. Now, who are you going to try to network with? Who are you going to approach? Like, who are you going to contact? And it's finding out, it's digging, it's looking on LinkedIn. I mean, that tool wasn't available 10 years ago, or at least not to the degree. You can start to do research from that company, find out how you're connected with people, the types of folks that they hire, ask them for help, try to stand out, reach out to talent acquisition. When I say walk that line, I don't mean like send an email a day or call them, every single day. That's probably not going to work for you either. But trying to stand out from the number of applicants that are on there, and they probably have some applicant tracking system, and who knows if they've even looked at your resume, trying to do things that will help your resume stand out, or you just in general stand out, you need to pursue all those avenues. Okay. And so what I'll tell people is every day they go in with a game plan. How are they going to approach the job? Make sure that it's actually doable in a day or an hour. Do it, take a break, and then come back and do it with the next company and the next job, and rinse and repeat. I said rinse and repeat twice, but that's
no, you're fine.
The adage holds true.
Like having a process, like literally a checklist of things you do, and then do it for each company that you're applying for. Find the people that on LinkedIn who know the people maybe who make the decisions. Try to get introductions at best. Obviously, at worst, just connect with them on LinkedIn. I mean, is there anything else they could do?
I mean, I know we're in a COVID world, so you can't necessarily go out there and do the old networking type of thing, but no, I think it really is. It's just about trying to pursue who in those organizations, make yourself stand out, and you have to highlight things too and be realistic about your background. One of the things as a recruiter I hear at least once a day is, well, I'm a quick learner. Well, okay, that's not what we're really looking for. I mean, I guess maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't care, but what do you have that you bring to the table, and be able to succinctly tell people about that? What makes your qualifications better than the rest? And it's got to be more than just fluff.
Okay. What other mistakes? Because that's actually leads me into another question. What other mistakes are people making? I mean, you can go too far, right? You can be annoying. You can, I don't know. I mean, is it a bad idea to stop by in a COVID world? Even if you have a mask on, stop by, drop someone off, say, hey, I don't want to bother you.
Yeah, at other times I might have said that might be okay. It probably wouldn't advise that today, but I think it is being reasonable in what you're applying for too, and recognize, do you fit the qualifications? And I do want to talk about qualifications here in a second, but where I do see people maybe slip up is it's two different extremes. There's the person who I just touched on that just applies, does nothing. Mm-hmm. Or worse yet, I've heard the person I'm just going to wait till this is all over. Well, geez. Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess if you have that kind of luxury to not make any income, then great. But, I don't know if that's a great plan.
All stimulus packages come to an end, whether they're happening now or going to happen in the future is another question altogether. But yeah, that's scary.
Well, and we've seen that with companies too, that no layoffs are coming to where they wait whether they have a severance or not. If you have a severance, that makes a little more sense. But when companies or people can see the writing on the wall and they just push it off and push it off and push it off and then wait until they're forced into a situation. Sure. And I think you have to be proactive about your search to, kind of use the motorcycle adage that you used earlier, like, be ahead of that game. On the other side of it too, I see the people that are just completely unrealistic with their search. So for instance, and I see this on both sides. I see this from clients of ours or companies, but on the applicant side, again, the quick learner thing doesn't mean anything. Everybody says that. What your experience, you have to make sure that you're realistic with what your experience has and what that company is looking for. And as you move up or progress in your career, that competition becomes more fierce too. So don't think just because you've been a quick riser in your career that all of a sudden you're just afforded opportunities wherever you go. You might have been able to nail the first 2 jobs of your career with one interview. Well, it's going to get continually harder, and being realistic about those types of things too. And I see people that I think are, because they've had kind of a nice ride so far, think that that's going to continue. And that's not the case. And that's not an indictment of them or anything like that. That's just the way it goes. So be realistic and know about what you're applying to. Make sure that it's actually within your skill set. You can still be ambitious and try to, advance your career, but be realistic about what you're applying to.
Got it. So something that's completely out of your skill set.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point?
Right.
Again, within reason.
Like people running a bunch of, like, the whole job market of being a bunch of people running down through a field, and there's a hurdle, and then there's a bigger hurdle, and then there's a bigger hurdle, and then all of a sudden COVID happens, and it's this enormous hurdle, and everybody kind of grinds to a halt against this hurdle, looking up, going, "Oh man," So I'm sure it's tough, right? I mean, there's kind of back to that bottleneck analogy. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are, pretty frustrated right now. So, I mean, what about cover letters? I mean, do you think that everybody should write a different cover letter for each company they're applying for? Or is that kind of old hat?
No, I don't think it's old hat. I don't know if they're always read. I think that's really dependent on the company and who's ultimately viewing these things, as a talent acquisition group or as a hiring manager. And even within that, you can't guarantee that they're going to be received. But I think if you want to tell your story in those cover letters, then go for it.
Would you say that I'm just thinking out loud here. Would you say that small businesses cover letters, big businesses not?
I don't know if I'd put a hard rule on any of these things. I think if you're going to have a cover letter, just like a resume, what I would advise people to do is have your template or your baseline, like resume, cover letter, and then create it or help it forever. What am I looking for here? Customize it for each job that you're applying for.
Oh man, for sure. Totally.
Yeah.
If you're going to write one, I guess my thing, because I get them every once in a while, and you can just tell when people don't care, I guess. But when people didn't put effort into it, and hopefully that's changing because of the environment we're in, that people are taking this a whole lot more serious than they were, say, in 2019 when the job market was just screaming. But I mean, what other things might you say? So you said have that process, right? For each company you're applying to, maybe reach out through email, maybe give them a phone call. Is there anything else that's almost, that you as a talent acquisition, expert, or the companies out there, the hiring experts, the HR directors are looking for to help people kind of put their head above the crowd?
Is there anything unique that they're looking for that's going to help separate them?
Kind of get that interview, for those people that are saying, man, I just can't even get an interview. How do they do it?
Yeah, I think it is just having that plan and really making your resume stand out and customizing it, contacting them. I would also say this too: don't get discouraged if you don't land that first job with the company. So if you're applying to, again, I'm just going to pick generic ABC Corp. Well, you might not get the initial job you're applying for, but who knows? They could have a myriad of jobs or opportunities that perhaps you're a better fit for, or just not the right timing. So just because you don't get something the first go around doesn't mean you should stop your networking with that company. And do you know how many clients of mine that I haven't been able to secure the initial role, but over the course of time, I've been able to fill other positions with them, and that is my job. Like, I can't just get discouraged and close up shop because I didn't land the first thing. And so I think people need to take that same approach when they're applying to jobs of, okay, maybe I didn't get this one, but I'm going to continue to network, asking for feedback, being genuine. I mean, these are the types of things that are just universal skill sets that I think people want to see.
I'm sure it's hard for people to be genuine sometimes if they're nervous, right? And they're trying to put on presentation almost, present themselves in the best light. But I get that, especially I just saw somebody literally on LinkedIn the other day. Can't remember who it was, who changed her profile picture from this just ridiculously great, polished, nice power suit, straight hair. And then, she's like changed it and made a post saying, look, we're in a different world now. This is me with my curly hair. This is me in my casual garb. This is the real me, and because we're in a different world now. So I think that being authentic is probably really important to employers, wouldn't you say?
I think it's even more important now. You hit on a good point there with LinkedIn, where everybody's a disruptor nowadays and a change agent and all these other buzz terms. But yeah, there's something to be said about just being genuine and being a hard worker. And those are the types of things that I know if I'm hiring for, can I sit there and have a normal conversation with them? And do I feel like they're going to add something of value to my company, or are they just kind of filled with fluff and buzz terms and really don't deliver on those things? So,
right.
So yeah, I like the person's approach that you just mentioned there, just being authentic.
What about, let's just say they get the interview, so we're excited, we're pumped up. Just had somebody in here the other day in our office who, after they left their meeting with us, they were going to get an interview with a pretty big company here in Columbus. And, we're all excited, but, she's nervous, about going into the interview. So what would you say, or what would you share to give people an edge in terms of beating out their competition when it comes to the interview process?
Yeah, you got to be prepared, and not just prepared in terms of having a few questions jotted down. Like, what I would encourage people to do is I give 3 tips for every level of interview. You need to have the company researched. You need to research the people that you're actually interviewing with. And then you need to understand the job beyond what's just on the document in front of you. So what really is essential for this? And don't be afraid to ask those things. In tandem with that, what do you bring to the table? And I touched on that earlier. Be realistic. And don't just talk about, as the employee of the month at a company or something like that. I was the high achiever at XYZ company. Well, what does that mean? So what do you bring that's different? And just coming in prepared with those types of things. I love it when I see people coming in with just pages upon pages of notes, and you can tell that they've researched and really looked into this and they're taking this seriously, versus somebody that's just showing up and lean back and here I am,
right. No notes.
I have yet to see somebody land an interview with, at least in a white collar job without any notes.
Well, there's the quote of the day right there. I have not seen somebody land a job coming into an interview if they don't have notes or research.
Yeah, never.
Quote of the day.
Never has happened. In most cases, too, I can tell you can just walk right back out the door. Quit wasting everybody's time here. So come in prepared, can be genuine, be researched. I think those types of things are going to help separate you from somebody else. And then immediately following up. Send them the thank you note.
That's huge. I always appreciate that when we've gone through our hiring processes and hired people. I love it when people follow up, and when they don't, I kind of half notice, but eventually you remember when it comes down to making the final decision. So if you have the top 3 candidates, you look back to see how did people respond after the phone interview, how did they respond after the first face-to-face interview, and so on. And if they don't show that burning desire that they really want this, we've made a hire before. In fact, it was our most recent hire where the difference between the top 2 candidates on paper, the one person had tons of certifications, designations, industry experience, literally in the role. And we ended up hiring the other candidate because they wanted it more. You could just tell that they had that burning desire to succeed. So basically what I'm hearing you say is come into the interview, research the company, research the people who are interviewing you and know who they are, know the role like the back of your hand, and then 4th, really know how you fit into that role, and honestly maybe where you don't, and have maybe questions for those things, or share that those are things that perhaps you're excited about learning about, if you are in fact excited, right?
I think you bring up a really good idea there, a good point with know where you don't too. I want people to be ahead of the game and be able to address their weaknesses or deficiency or whatever it might be. I've worked with people who have been let go from companies, and not let go because of COVID, let go. And look, it happens. There's personality differences, whatever it's not always the applicant's fault or the candidate's fault. There's times where it just genuinely doesn't work out. I would get ahead of that game and
Right.
want to address that in the room, so that it's not that the topic never comes up. I leave, and then it's left to speculation amongst people that might be hiring me. So whether it's that or just something where, I don't have a particular software, I don't have the years of experience, be ready to address those things. So I think you bring up a really good point there, and that I would want to be proactive in my approach and talking about those things. But to go back to what else you said too, just like you were looking basically for a tiebreaker. And despite all these advances in technology with applicant tracking systems and, God knows what else with LinkedIn, and we still rely a lot on our just gut feel. Like, boy, could I see myself working with them? Do I like them? Do they, are they basically hireable, but
Cultural
beyond
fit.
hireable? What was that?
Cultural fit.
Yeah. And so, I think just those little things like sending a thank you note and being authentic in that goes a really long way, and doing it immediately. The one thing I will discourage people to do, and I've seen this mistake happen a lot, is people basically try to redo the interview or get like they'll list a bunch of things in the thank you note, and those thank you notes should be, it's about the gesture,
right?
Short and sweet. I appreciated the time. Think I would make a great addition to the team. Can't wait to hear the next steps. The end type of thing.
And you might disagree with me here. I mentioned that I love when I get the follow-up, the follow-up message, but what I like even better than a follow-up email is a handwritten card.
I love it.
I know it's old school, but there's just something extra special about that card coming a couple days later, especially almost if you don't follow up via email, for someone to say, oh, well, I guess they're not going to follow up. Okay. And then you get the handwritten card and you go, whoa, that's really nice, and it doesn't have, like you said, nothing to do with the job, just a sincere message about how you enjoyed the interview, if you did, and if you didn't, obviously don't write the card.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, back, like, this has been a number of years ago, but I used to hand those to people when they would wrap up interviews. Give it to them. Like, say, you're gonna write a thank you. I'm not writing it for them, but you're
helping them with the process.
Yes. I think you're right on with that. I mean, it's not going to hurt you unless it's just littered with spelling and grammatical errors, which maybe you want to have somebody proofread it. But short of that, I think it's a real nice touch. And you talked about what separators or differentiators can you provide for yourself out there in the market. Well, that's certainly one of them.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What about how does working with recruiter, and I think you kind of started to allude to this, how does working with someone like yourself help the employee?
So helping the employee, it is the guidance they're just talking about. So a lot of the things here that we're discussing here are the same types of things that I'm going to be covering with somebody. I think on the front end of that, though, a lot of the jobs that I discuss with people aren't listed. Or maybe they're on the company's websites, but they're not hitting the job boards.
I see.
So these are relationships built over the course of time. Like I'll just share with you my morning. And it was dealing with a company or client of mine that I've known for 10 years now.
And for the listeners and watchers, there, when Rob says a client, he means a company that hires.
Right.
So he has relationships with different companies, and that relationship helps. He kind of acts as an intermediary to help people find good fits within the company. Am I right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, when I say candidate, applicant, like I'm talking about the person applying for the job, of course. But thank you for clarifying.
Yeah,
that.
For sure.
So in this case, I'm able to go beyond the resume and beyond the job boards, and not only finding jobs that might not be posted out there, but helping those people stand out for all the reasons we just mentioned before, that you apply to jobs, you might not hear back. Well, I'm following up. I'm making sure you stand out. I'm not just relying on email or job boards or applicant tracking systems. I'm picking up the phone. I'm calling them. Pre-COVID world, I was meeting with them, but I'm actively discussing you and your qualifications and trying to get you into the interview. I can't do the interview for you, but I'm going to help you prep for it. I'm going to help you find those jobs. I'm going to help you stand out. And those are the types of things that I bring to the table.
And what about from the employer's perspective? So your client. So if I'm a business and I'm looking to hire you, why does it make sense? What are you bringing to the table from an employer standpoint? For those people or those companies out there that go, I don't want to spend the money, or I have my own process. What do you bring to the table, and how can you help them?
So it's what we would term a passive marketplace or passive candidates. And what I mean by that is, the people that are on job boards are actively looking. Nothing wrong with that. You can certainly find the right applicant through that. And I'm not saying that's not the case. But what I provide to you is is probably a list of candidates that you're not going to find on your own. The reason you're not going to find them on your own is because they're not looking. And that
Okay.
I've cultivated that. Me and my business partners have cultivated those relationships over the course of time. So if you give me, a job and say, hey, I need 1, 2, and 3 for this controller position, chances are I have them and I know where to go. And I know if I don't have them, I know who to contact to basically build upon my network to get them. So my job is to be constantly networked. I'm interviewing all the time so that when companies do contact me, I'm ready to go. I can bring them that candidate that they will not find on their own.
It's almost like you have an inventory. I hate to call people inventory here because it sounds insensitive, but it sounds to me like you have an inventory of people who abide by that philosophy of staying ahead of traffic where they're currently employed. So obviously it helps those who are looking for a job, without a doubt. I clearly see the fit there. But even for people who are not looking for a job actively right now, who are actively employed, who are gainfully employed, people who are maybe top candidates even, for those people that are saying, you know what, I want to stay ahead of traffic. That's your inventory for the clients that you work with. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's our inventory, and we're constantly restocking the shelves, constantly. Like I
love it.
Yeah, I can't let up on that. Like I have to, and not just me, but I'm talking about my partners. Like we are always interviewing, always tapping into the candidate marketplace to making sure that we're ready, like at any given point that we can fill whatever need that a company has. And I'll toot our own horn here for a little bit, in that we had some cases last month where we filled jobs that I think there was 3 or 4 of them that we filled in under 2 weeks. And
Wow.
I'm talking about from beginning to end. And when you look at the overall, like I have a lot of companies that have had postings out for 3, 4, 5 months, and we're able to deliver in a couple of weeks. Well, yeah, there's certainly some value.
That's unheard of.
I would like to think, and that we have the right candidate. We know what they need. We're able to deliver upon it. So when we say we can do these things, I mean, we have to back that up, and we take that very seriously. And so I think, we did a remarkable job of that last month. And again, there's a company I can think of right off the top of my head where the phone call, I knew they had this opening. They could not find it. Within 30 seconds in that call, I had their candidate.
Wow. I think it goes without saying that why it is that who should be calling you from an employer perspective. That seems obvious to me. Should individuals be reaching out to you as well?
Like what types of individuals?
Or should they? First of all, because I think that there's some misconceptions out there, and maybe I've heard some, not a lot of people, but I've heard some people say, oh, well, I don't, as an individual, one of the inventory, so to speak, I don't want to work with recruiters because I feel like I'm always being recruited. Is that just a bad attitude? What should people's attitude be about working with someone like you?
Yeah. So what if you're always being recruited? Like, I guess that's where I'd start. Like, is that bad to have? They don't have to do the network, and I do it. Like, and if they're not interested, I'm not going to twist somebody's arm or try to talk them into a job. My role is to try to be objective, be a sounding board, and provide them with opportunities. But if it doesn't make sense for them for whatever reason, just not the right time, not the right money, whatever, that's okay. Like I don't have magic words, nor am I interested in looking for them to tell them why they should be taking these opportunities. So I don't know what you would really have to lose by a recruiter. Now, again, if I had to maybe give a knock of our industries, I do know certain recruiters that try to kind of jam that, circle into a square peg or whatever the adage is.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that can get old, but there's plenty of good recruiters out there that are, again, we keep using these same terms, but genuine, authentic, have their best interest at hand. And I'd like to think that I'm one of those. So I don't know
what you see is the biggest misconception, I guess, about what that individuals candidates have about recruiters.
I think it maybe is what you hit on, that maybe they feel like they're going to get sold.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I'm not interested in that conversation. Again, it's not that I don't get upset when we talked about those people that turn down jobs at the offer stage. Yeah, selfishly, would I like for those things to go through? Of course I would. But if it doesn't make sense, that's fine. Like, that's okay. I don't want them to take a job that doesn't make sense for them career-wise. Even if I disagree, I'm not the one who ultimately makes those decisions.
They have to live with it.
They have to do what's right for them. So, yeah, I think, there are recruiters that I think can be pushy and try to maybe sell you on something. And that's, if you pick up that vibe, I would just say, just get rid of that recruiter or tell them, hey, chill out a little bit on that.
Be honest.
Yeah. I'm not looking to bombard people about things that don't make sense for them.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And what if there are job seekers listening right now or watching that are not in your wheelhouse, outside the sectors that you focus on? What would be your recommendation to them as to how to go about finding the right talent acquisition firm like yours, but maybe in another sector to land their next career?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One, you can always contact me, and I refer people all the time.
Okay.
And I've even referred people to direct competitors of mine. So if I can't help them, I'll try to give them just some general career advice, resume tips, whatever it might be. But I'll also try to get them to the right recruiter. I would probably reverse engineer that. If you don't want to contact me, and look at what recruiters have job postings out there in your field, and contact those people. And again, work it backwards. Look at the postings. Who are they? You can certainly work with the larger shops, and I'm not saying don't do that, but I would also try to get in touch with a local expert, or at least an industry expert. And again, use that litmus test of are they following up with you? Are they presenting you with the right opportunities? You can tell pretty quickly the bad recruiters from the good recruiters. The bad recruiters don't have any idea about your background, and they're presenting you with things that are way off base. The good recruiters have great follow-up skills, are presenting you with things, even if they don't do it immediately, are presenting you with things that are in line with what you're looking for career-wise. Or if they're a little bit off, can at least talk through that. I own when I don't know something. I don't know every area of finance.
For sure.
I certainly don't know every area of IT. And so I'll just tell people that, look, I could be off on this, but here's what we're looking at. Tell me if this makes sense for you. But to go back to your question, I would look at who has the job postings, look at your local experts, use LinkedIn, see who's posting things and do you like their approach, and sample a few. And then also ask people who are in that field, who have they worked with? I mean, referrals are still the best source to get to the right recruiter.
That's great. I think that I really appreciate you being willing to share, to talk to people and just give them help. Even if you're not the right fit for them. If you want to get a hold of Robb, he can be reached at Robb. It's 2 B's, so ROBB at peerless-search.com, and Peerless is spelled P as in Paul, EERLESS-search.com. You can also check out their website at peerless-search.com to learn more about Robb and his team and what they do and how they help people. I think that's probably good for today. Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
No, just stay networked. I mean, I know it's hard right now, but I just hear it time and time again when I deal with or work with people, and that the most common mistake I hear is just, I never really networked through our career. And, we're sitting here because we were at a networking event.
Right. Yeah. You and I met at the 40 under 40 awards in 2011.
Right. And so here I am, here we are. We're working together. I acquired my doctor from that same event. So,
right.
I think it is important to get out there. And I know it's not as easy today. There's still virtual networking events, but don't be afraid to just reach out to people and ask them, who do you know? Can you help me? And that requires more than just one email or one message on LinkedIn. You might have to hit up 20 different people to get a response.
I think people are willing to help.
Yeah.
Don't you? I think that, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, and I helped connect somebody who wasn't a good fit for our business, for financial planning, retirement planning, investment management. And while it wasn't a good fit for me, I ended up being able to connect this person with someone else on LinkedIn, and that helped them get a job. And I'm not even a recruiter, so I think that people are willing to help if you just ask.
I would totally agree. And I'm going to compliment you here big time. I remember a couple of years ago, I had somebody that I couldn't help. They were trying to get into financial planning. Oh. I believe I reached out to you on Christmas Eve. Email, and you responded. I think that's great. That's a testament to you, but I remember that.
Thanks.
But I think you're right. I think that people do want to help, but don't get discouraged if they're not responding to you right away. Because a lot of times I don't think it's that they don't want to help or they're bad people. They just might be busy. They're
supply and demand.
Yeah, just they might forget. And so that's why I say don't be afraid to reach out to, if you're looking at a company, reach out to 20 people. You might get a response from one of them.
or more. I mean, and then with LinkedIn especially, I know that sometimes people don't have notifications set up correctly with their email. So if you send them a message on LinkedIn, they might not get it. There's times when LinkedIn just doesn't send the notification and you just don't get it. And so you don't notice it until much later. There's times when I'm sure people just hit the delete button accidentally and, delete the notification so they don't see it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with just, if you send an email to somebody and you say, hey, would love to, if you know this person well that I see you're connected to, would love a warm introduction. If they don't respond, to just send them another message maybe 2-3 weeks later that simply says, hey, hey, Rob, just following up on the message below. Thanks so much. That's it. Just hit send. And I think that's pretty harmless.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, that's it for today's show. Feel free to share this episode with your friends and family. And if you'd like to discuss your personal situation further, you can get a hold of Robb again at robb@peerless-search.com or check out their website. In terms of, I know we didn't talk at all about financial planning, retirement planning, investment management today, completely off topic, obviously, but we were talking about money, and that's what this is all about, right? Becoming more successful, learning things and becoming more educated, which I hope everybody learned something more today. If you'd like to set up an introduction meeting with Robb, feel free to reach out to him. If you'd like to learn more about retirement planning, investment management, financial planning, you can set up a introduction call or Zoom meeting on our website at libertaswealth.com. As always, I like to say that there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to give ours a listen. So thank you so much for joining in. Be sure again to subscribe on both iTunes and YouTube. And remember, you can sign up at libertaswealth.com to get updates like these, as well as other screencasts, videos, articles delivered directly to your inbox. Feel free to follow us on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at Adam Koós and Instagram at Financial Surgeons. So thank you again so much once again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Cash Podcast with your financial surgeon, Adam Koós. To see any charts or images that were mentioned in this show, or to check out additional articles, videos, and other educational resources, head over to libertaswealth.com.